Okay. Do you have a place? Check mic. Check. Check mic. Check mic. Mic check. Check mic. Check. Hello? 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 One test. Hello?
Good morning. Welcome to this press briefing in which we have Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid, who is the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, and also joining us is the Director for Infrastructure and Energy, Mr. Sheikh Beda. Today, the department is going to give us a briefing on the key activities that have been implemented in the course of the last 1 year in relation to digital transformation on the continent, an update on the single African air transport market, projects that have been undertaken in relation to renewable energy, and of course the program for infrastructure development in Africa. And without taking any more time, I'd like to invite the Commissioner to address the media. Thank you.
Please, before I start, I would like to introduce the full team who is here present, so that maybe later on you would like to interact with them. To my right is the Director for Infrastructure Energy. He's in charge of course, the department. And if you would like to have more information, particularly about the Program for Infrastructure Development, he would be the person to address. But I would like also to welcome to our family at the African Union, and today two members. They are not new to the African Union, but they are new in their roles. First, of course, His Excellency, the head of the AFCAC, which is the African agency in charge of civil aviation, who just been appointed in November. And also the colleague Rashid Abdallah, he is the head of AFRIC, which is the African agency in charge of energy efficiency, who was also appointed in December or November. So as I said, they are new members to in their new roles, I mean, at the African Union. Of course, other colleagues, the head of division for energy, the head of division for transport, the head of division for ICT, he's here present. To start this briefing, 2018 has been a very interesting and important year for us. We've seen some major breakthroughs and achievements taking place during that year. If you recall, in January of 2018, we started off by launching the Single African Air Transport Market. This was the first deliverable of the Agenda 2063. The first flagship project to be launched from the Agenda 2063 was launched by us in January, and it was about the Single African Air Transport Market. Why? Because we are cognizant of the importance of transport, and particularly air transport, and we would like to increase the traffic, the air transport traffic, and also the capacity, and encourage African airlines to be the main operators on the continent. Of course, this would not happen without also some tax that regulate that market. So, so far also we were, I'm happy to report that by now we also finished the competition rules. Also the legal document on the consumer protection regulations, the document on powers and functions of the executive agency, and what remains now is the dispute settlement mechanism. The first documents were already approved, and we're happy that we're seeing now 28 countries joining the Single African Air Transport Market, and 16 countries have already lifted all barriers and restrictions for air transport, and it's becoming now seamless between these 16 countries. A great achievement indeed, and we're really proud of our continent and of our African countries. I cannot leave the Single African Air Transport Market without also without mentioning the importance of our agency, the Agency for Civil Aviation, which is the spearhead that has the task and mandate also to capacitate our countries in order to carry out this very important endeavor. We were successful in mobilizing about $5 million now to support AFCAC and to appoint the new director in order to operationalize the action plan that we have adopted with all stakeholders present. We adopted it in March 2018 including, as I said, the industry, the international organizations, and all the organizations, African and global, which are in charge of civil aviation. So great progress on that file. I'll go now to another important area, which is the digitalization. I'm sure you know that our continent is making excellent progress when it comes to digitalization. And as we stand, 7% of our GDP on the continent is generated through mobile technologies and what have you. And this is about $110 billion, just, you know, returns or revenues or contribution of the mobile technology to our economies on the continent. The numbers employed also in that sector are very important, and they will keep increasing. We're very happy to see that there are more than 400 incubators now on the continent, tech incubators, technology incubators. We have also the Artificial Intelligence Center now in Ghana. We have countries that rolled out the digital identification card at massive scale. And we are also witnessing a surge in e-commerce and of course the digital transformation or e-government services that are being provided through this digitalization. That said, what we noticed is that we have success stories here and there on the continent. What we would like to see is a harmonized approach throughout the continent for digital transformation. This is why we are launching, and you please stay tuned to the 11th of February, the second day of the summit, because we have a big announcement to make. We are joining forces with all stakeholders and international organizations in order to develop a continental strategy for a digital transformation that will tackle and will address all sectors and will have a clear objective by the year 2030 in order to take and help take our continent and leap into what we call the African century or the digital era. So please stay tuned. That said, in 2018, we've been very active in cybersecurity areas, since it was identified as a flagship project, in also providing the regulations and the policy and regulation for the digital Africa, training more than 42 countries, that means policymakers, technical and law enforcement, in order to fight cybercrime and to provide the cybersecurity to our African citizens. And of course, you have been maybe following in the news, together with the European Union, we also have a task force that is mandated to identify particular or specific areas for collaboration with the European Union on digitalization. E-government, or providing e-services through the technology means, takes an important place in the work that we do, and for that we joined forces with Estonia, a leader in the industry. We will start this year again providing support to our countries in the area of e-government, hopefully leading to an academy for e-government, an African academy for e-government. I'm also happy to announce that we will be expecting Her Excellency President of Estonia on the 11th, also to talk to us a little bit more about this, and to emphasize the partnership that already is taking place with us at the Union. Energy is another very important file. And energy is, as you know, renewable energy particularly is growing fast across the continent. The price and the cost is getting much more competitive. Solar and wind are the two major ones that we've seen growing on the continent. We have also been operating in providing support to our countries for geothermal energy, and out of the 30 countries that we have on the 30 projects that we have in the pipeline, we have 8 projects already being implemented, and through grants provided by the African Union. We also developed the harmonized transmission tariff, the methodology for a harmonized transmission tariff, because our aim is to create a single or an energy market across the continent, and our countries to exchange, the energy among themselves. So for that, we need also to know what are the rules to do that, particularly on the cost and the tariff part. So this has been adopted by the Ministers of Energy in 2018. And there is still, of course, work ongoing to develop this energy market across the continent. Last but not least, we also provided the Africa Energy Policy Framework and Guidelines. I mentioned earlier AFCAC, which is the African body that is in charge of energy efficiency, and happy to report also that AFCAC is doing an excellent work in terms of gathering and updating energy statistics across the continent, but also capacitating and providing technical assistance to our countries. And we have a large number of programs or workshops, if you will, that already took place in 2018. The program for infrastructure development. The program for infrastructure development is the big program that has the major projects, regional projects that link our countries together, that provide, the necessary infrastructure for regional integration of the continent. We had a series of projects under the first phase. We are reviewing now, under this project, we have about 16,000 kilometers of roads that were built, more than 4,000 kilowatt that were produced. We have transmission lines of about 3,500 kilometers added. We connected 17 countries with regional fiber optic, and the program so far provide about 113,000 jobs, direct jobs, and more than 50,000 indirect jobs. We are now into the phase of preparing the second group of projects or list of projects for under this program. We met in last year in October in Niagara Falls, and we also agreed that the next generation or the new list should put emphasis on women in infrastructure, on climate resilience, and to ensure that infrastructure and access is provided to rural communities. So this is among the criteria that we will emphasize upon when we prepare the list for the second phase of the program for infrastructure development in Africa. Maybe an important also piece of an important information is that in October 2018, the chairperson of the African Union, Mr. Moussa Faki, appointed the Honorable Raila Odinga of Kenya as the special envoy for infrastructure, and Mr. Odinga has already started advocating for the program for infrastructure development and for the interconnections between our countries and for regional integration. I think I'll stop here. My colleagues and I are all around. I'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone, I think we have a question on this side of the floor.
My name is Joseph Akable. I am a journalist. I work with Joy News in Accra, Ghana. My question has to do with aviation. We know that some countries had raised concerns about the agreement, specifically Nigeria and Egypt. They had talked about issues of unfair competition and a bit about charges and restrictions in terms of visa. My question is, you talked about the competition framework that has been developed. So far, since that was done, what has been the engagement with these countries? Are they now on board? And the second question is, when do you expect this to be fully operational? When can you expect that this is taking full force?
Thank you. Now, you want to answer it? Come, David. David, go ahead. Please go ahead. It's on, it's on.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Actually, as the Commissioner spoke, the documents are ready, and they've just been adopted recently, and we are in the process of disseminating them. And this week, 2 weeks to come, we are going even to have a workshop about these documents here in Addis Ababa. As she said, the dispute settlement mechanism is not yet fixed, but the competition regulations is already operational. The dispute settlement mechanism we expect it to be completed in June, and even without it, we have some other mechanisms for resolving disputes through the monitoring body. We have an institution called the monitoring body that also hears grievances of various parties to the Yamoussoukro decision. So that mechanism also works, which is operated by us ourselves, AUC, AFCAC, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. So I think, of course, I know maybe it will take some time, but soon, when we have the full dispute settlement mechanism, the matter will be completely resolved. But in the meantime, we've got these alternative mechanisms for resolving disputes.
Any more questions?
It's clear. Everything is clear. Right?
Everything is clear. Or you're surprised by how much is actually being done. Yes, as the Commissioner mentioned, there are a lot of projects that have been undertaken. The single African air transport market is a very important one. She's talked about the renewable energy projects, which I think is a very important aspect that we need to pursue in terms of our conversations with the African Union. The program for infrastructure development, we all talk about connectivity. So how is this going to work as a commission with the rest of the member states? So
and the digital transformation.
The digital transformation, as she mentioned, one of the key flagship projects of the African Union is on cybersecurity, which touches all of us. So I'd really like to get a question on cybersecurity and digital transformation.
And yes, and I think I draw the attention to the event that will take place on the 11th and the announcement that we'll make on the 11th of February.
All right. No, it's okay, as long as
you gave us highlights of numerous projects under the energy sector, but I suppose one of the largest projects under this sector is development of the Inga. I don't think it has taken off so far. So could you give us an update on it?
We have been working with the different parties in charge of the Inga Dam, and the way Le marché.
The market.
The way they structured the project for the tender has been revised. So there's a new approach to the tender. So that it's being restructured in order to as I said, to prepare it for the tender. But we are we're very close to all the parties involved, with the government as well. And as I said, it's a huge project, as you know. It's a very big project. But the way it was being prepared was restructured by the government, and we are waiting for the new structure in order to chip in and then to provide the support that is needed.
Why is the need to revise?
Device.
What was the problem? Restructure?
No, not a problem. It's not a problem. It's that the government decision is that it would be more beneficial to structure the tender in a certain way, and but it's not about a problem. It's how to make it more beneficial in order to be more efficient and effective in implementation.
Any more questions? Okay. Commissioner Junta, anything?
No, I think I will,
Okay.
unless Mr. Beda, is there anything that you would like to add?
So there are some very detailed briefing notes
Yeah,
from the
before-
department. Sorry, you want to say something?
Not to ask colleagues if there's anything they would like to add.
No?
Okay.
Okay, so we have some very detailed briefing notes on the 4 areas that were touched on by the commissioner. And for those of you who'd like to meet the experts from the different institutions as well as the commissioner, please liaise with Molalet and they will organize one-on-one interviews for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.